Today's reading is from the Gospel according to Mark. James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came to Jesus and said to him, "Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask of you." He replied, "What do you wish for me to do for you?" They answered him, "Grant that in your glory we may sit, one at your right and the other at your left." Jesus said to them, "You do not know what you are asking. Can you drink the cup that I drink, or be baptized with the baptism with which I am baptized?" They said to him, "We can." Jesus replied, "The cup that I drink you will drink, and with the baptism with which I am baptized you will be baptized. But to sit at my right or my left is not mine to give, but is for those for whom it has been prepared." When the other 10 heard this, they became indignant at James and John. Jesus summoned them all and said to them, "You know that those who are recognized as rulers over the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great ones make their authority over them felt. But it shall not be so among you. Rather, whoever wishes to be great among you will be your servant. Whoever wishes to be first among you will be the slave of all. For the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." As I mentioned in this week's Agape Meditation newsletter, this reading is so rich because it really highlights all of our human compulsions. You know, our temptations for pride, our temptations to want preference over another, reflecting our compulsion of envy, our desire to have more than what we think we have, our desire to covet what another person seems to have, our desire for fame, for status, for position, for power. All of these reflect what is valued in the material world. All of these reflect what is valued in the 3D world, the world of duality consciousness. Jesus is helping his disciples to understand that this is not what is valued in the world governed by love. Jesus flips the table on the human desires for achievement and recognition. Specifically, he flips the table on perceived authority. What do we call authority in our human experience? The way many of us have been brought up is that there's people in positions of authority, and their authority is assumed because of the position that they're in. And that we are to look to those people as our teachers, our guides, those to make decisions for us. We look outside of ourselves at other institutions for making decisions for us, dictating the course of our life, creating rules by which we are invited to live. Jesus flips that all upside down and says, if you're going to follow me, you need to look at things from a different perspective. And ultimately, it's that invitation to recognize that the first shall be last and the last shall be first. It's another quote attributed to Jesus somewhere in Scripture. That we are here to serve one another. We are here to be a source of support for each other. And that it is in that place of service where we find our recognition, if you will, our authority, if you will. But even that isn't quite right. Or perhaps I should say, it hasn't been interpreted rightly. So I know for myself growing up, kind of the preferred image was the suffering servant. That you're supposed to give. And your needs, A, don't matter, or come last. It's our job to sacrifice what we have, who we are, in order to please other people, in order to serve other people, to make sure that other people's needs are being met. And while this particular story doesn't go into the detail of how that wasn't what Jesus did, the rest of Mark's gospel does. So before I give that example, I want to share a mantra that was given to me by one of my teachers, Sister Judy Miller. And the mantra is, the most loving thing you can do for those you love is to do what's most loving for yourself. The most loving thing you can do for those you love is to do what's most loving for yourself. That's a serve by serving ourselves first. We cannot be a source of love and support for those we care for if our needs are not being met. If we're not making sure that we're taken care of, if we're not showing ourselves radical self-love by listening to our needs and the call of our soul first before showing up as a source of support for others. And while it's not often preached, that is the model that Jesus lived. And that's especially obvious in Mark's gospel, which is one of the reasons I love Mark's gospel. One, because it's very simple. I mean, you can sit down and read it in an hour. It's simple, it's concise, it's to the point. It's also most likely one of the closest to source material. It was the earliest written of the four gospels and is closest to what they call the Q source, which is, no one has actually found the Q source, but it's one of the earliest writings on the sayings of Jesus and some of the events of his life. So in the Gospel of Mark, what you see over and over and over and over and over and over is Jesus taking care of himself first. And it's portrayed in something like this. Jesus preached on the side of the mountain, and then he went off and prayed. Jesus healed the blind man, then he went off and prayed. Jesus broke bread with his friends, then he went off and prayed. Jesus healed the leper, then he went out and prayed. Jesus preached in the temple, then he went off and prayed. That off and prayed thing shows up over and over and over and over in Mark's gospel. And it's always in quick succession. Right after Jesus did something, he went off and prayed. He did something, he went off and prayed. He did something, he went off and prayed. What that represents to us is what's first. The first is connecting. The first is going within. The first is taking care of our soul. And in this particular case, for Jesus, it was spending time with the divine within himself. Spending time in meditation, contemplation, and prayer. Taking time to be quiet and still, and to nourish his soul through that place of quiet, where he also sought guidance. So we don't see Jesus going to the temple and asking the Pharisees, so tell me, what should I do today? He went within. He went within to that place of intimate connection with that which he called Abba, or Father, that he experienced as a profound, expansive energy of unconditional love. He went there first for nourishment, for guidance, for support, and for comfort. For comfort after times of ridicule or condemnation, or times of conflict, or times of difficulty. I imagine after having this interchange with James and John, he was like, oh my God, they still don't get it. It's not about status. It's not about whether you sit on my right hand or my left hand. It's about taking care of yourself and then serving others. So in that, Jesus provides a model for us. It's what comes first. What comes first is that intimate connection with ourselves, our soul, the divine that dwells within us. Through that intimate connection, finding out what is it that is our unique gift to the world. Now, in Jesus' case, he discovered it long before this story happened. He knew what his call was. He knew what his unique gift was. Gift and call was to awaken the world to love, and to do that through teaching and healing and presence. While that was Jesus' call, each and every one of us has our own unique gift, our own unique call. In connecting with that giftedness, we find first the source of meaning, purpose, and fulfillment in our own lives. What is it that helps us to feel fulfilled? What is it that helps us feel content? What is it that helps us feel alive? Finding that first within ourselves and doing that for ourselves. Then allowing ourselves to be a source of support for others through that gift. So maybe you find fulfillment in teaching. Maybe you find fulfillment in writing or painting. Maybe you find fulfillment in cooking and sharing that nourishment with others. Maybe you find fulfillment in activism. Each of us have our own unique giftedness, and there's a million ways that we can be gifted. We first have to find out what that is. Then we have to do that for ourselves. Then we can be that servant for others. But not serving without taking care of our needs first. Because we all know what happens when we give, when we don't really want to, or we give because we feel obligated, or we give when our needs aren't being met. We feel taken advantage of, we feel resentful. That's not meaning and fulfillment. That's not contentment and joy. That's us not taking care of ourselves because we're taking care of everybody else instead. So the most loving thing that we can do for those we love is to do what's most loving for ourselves. And in that, we can be that humble servant that Jesus invites us to be, where we don't care about positions of authority or achievement or fame or recognition, because we're being fulfilled within ourselves first, and then we're further fulfilled in our ability to share those gifts with others. So in the Christian tradition, Jesus is the model or the archetype of that humble service. That humble service that is about taking care of our needs first and then being present to others so that we can support them in meeting their needs as well. Unfortunately, nobody has, as far as I know, created any kirtan chants to Jesus, which I wish somebody would. I'm not a composer, so that's not my gift. But we do have these amazing Sanskrit chants that, really we get to use them in whatever way we want to. So I'm very grateful for Ragini, who is a kirtan artist in Milwaukee, and I had an opportunity to attend one of her kirtan camps. And she explained in the camp about Krishna. So Krishna is one of the Hindu manifestations of the divine, images of the divine, a certain aspect of the divine. Specifically, Krishna represents unconditional love and humble service. And the banner right there, the bottom one, the dude on the left with the blue skin, that's Krishna. The word Krishna, translated into English, roughly means he or she or that which leads us to truth. That which leads us to truth. Interestingly, Christ means anointed one, but also means that which leads us to truth. So there's a little overlap there. And a little tidbit that I was just reminded of, Hildegard of Bingen was an amazing mystic and visionary and ridiculously gifted. Oh my God, no one should have as many gifts. She had these mystical visions, and she saw Christ as blue, with blue skin. And I don't know, there's something about that that's intriguing to me. So anyway, in kirtan, when we chant the name of the aspect of the divine that we're connecting with, we're inviting ourselves, allowing ourselves to be attuned to the vibration of that particular aspect of the divine. So when we chant the Krishna chant, we are allowing ourselves to be attuned to, we're allowing our physical frequency to more closely reflect that of that aspect of the divine, which in this case represents unconditional love and humble service. Unconditional love and humble service. And so that's what our practice is going to be for today. We're going to listen to, and if you feel so called, sing along with one of the Krishna chants, and this particular one is from Krishna Das, who is a modern kirtan artist or performer. And my invitation, as you're allowing yourself to be present to the sounds and the vibrations, is to allow yourself to be open. Open to your divine frequencies, being more closely attuned to unconditional love and humble service. And if you feel like holding an image of Krishna or an image of Jesus or another image of the divine that speaks to you in your mind, the divine feminine, Sophia, the goddess, whatever you want to hold in your mind as you're allowing yourself to be present to that attunement, if you will, I invite you to do so. So I invite you to close your eyes.